welcome back to the program. On Sunday, Donald Trump sat down with Fox Business Maria Bartiromo for an interview to cover his legislative agenda as well as the military intervention in Iran. Let's have a look at this interview.
Mr. President, you were just coming off of one of the most consequential weeks anybody has ever seen, from striking Iran to going to NATO, to announcing 2 deals, and then the Supreme Court victory. Have you been able to digest what has occurred in the last 7 days?
Not really. It was a pretty wild period of time, and I really think in 6 months we've taken the country and turned it around. I was told by the King of Saudi Arabia, by the leader of Qatar and the leader of UAE, when we went over there, we brought back $5.1 trillion investment into the United States. They said, you know, you're presiding now over the hottest country in the world. And a year ago, we thought your country was dead. It could never come back. It was so incompetently run by a very bad president. And I said, you're right, this country is hot. And that was a couple of months ago. You know, now we're talking about what we've done recently. So the country is really going. The numbers are great. I watch you in the mornings and you're giving those numbers and they're really good. No inflation. We have a bad Fed chairman, but other than that, we have, great. It doesn't even matter. The numbers are so good. It doesn't matter that he keeps the rates artificially high. But it's been an amazing period of time.
When you went to the Middle East and you strengthened those relationships with all of those countries you just mentioned, did you have an idea that you would have to do something with regard to Iran? Because you teased it a little. You said, look, they've got to come to the table and talk. Something's going to happen. Well,
it was getting a little bit hot, and we knew they had a lot of sites, probably 3 plus the 1. But they had 3 main sites, and we knew they were going to have to either give them up. And I thought we could do it during negotiation, and we just about had it done. And then they said, we want enrichment. Enrichment doesn't mean like air conditioning, and it doesn't mean to jack up your car. Enrichment is a bad word. And I said, you got so much oil, what do you need that for? And they said, well, we need it. And I wouldn't let that happen. I think people wouldn't have understood it if I allowed that to happen. So we had a 60-day talk, and that delayed them a lot. And then we said, let's go at it. And it just worked out. And we wanted to work out also for Iran. They were beaten up, and so was Israel. In all fairness, they were both very tight. We call it the 12-day war. That was an intensive war.
But I want to get your take on China, really, because you've announced an agreement with the Chinese Communist Party, where China will export the rare earth minerals.
Yeah.
What does that mean in terms of this upcoming tariff structure? You've got a pause in terms of the more steep tariffs that ends August 12th. Are you going to extend that? Are you going to keep that in place or go back to a higher tariff on China?
China's going to be paying a lot of tariffs, but we have a big deficit. They understand that. I have a great relationship with President Xi. We have to do something about the deficit because we have a big trade deficit with China. Biden let it get up to $1 trillion. Think of it, $1 trillion deficit with one country. He let them just take them over the coals. We're not going to do that. But we're doing a rare earth deal, but we're also doing, remember, we have all of the airplane parts. They can't fly their airplanes without us. So we had, some guards also. But it should have never gotten that way because we should have been doing they call it magnets. It's a rare earth, but they call it magnets, a specific type. And they're making those magnets for us right now, and things are well. And we have a deal with China. It's a good deal, I think, hopefully for everybody. We had a deal with China where it was 145% tariffs, and I will tell you, everything stopped in China. I saw that everything stopped, and we did China a favor. But we're getting along well with China. I think getting along well with China is a very good thing. But they are paying substantial tariffs.
Well, I noticed that because it seems like you go so far with China, but you don't sort of use the leverage that you can use. I mean, look.
If I ever had to use it, I'd use it. But when there's no reason to use it, that's good too.
Well, we did just arrest 3 or 4 Chinese nationals who tried to bring a pathogen into the country that gets people sick and destroys food supply. We've got hacking.
You don't know where that came from, though. I mean, did that come from the country, or is that 3 wackos that happened to carry something? You just don't.
Well, there was one that he signed that he would be, one of them signed a paper saying that he would value Mao Zedong's value system. So there was that. And then they hacked, and they hack into our telecom system. They've been stealing intellectual property. They fentanyl, COVID. I mean, all of this stuff. So how do you negotiate with obviously a bad actor and trust them on economics?
You don't think we do that to them? We do.
So
Very, very interesting here from Trump. And, Maria Bartiromo here kind of trying to, sort of portray China here as antagonistic. And then quite unusual here, Trump saying, oh, do you think we don't do that to them? And, Trump, I guess he is taking a stance here a little bit more neutral. And perhaps as he is in negotiations right now, he has to be careful as to what he says on public television, because it will, of course, influence the outcomes of the negotiations that he's doing.
We do a lot of things.
that's the way the world works.
That's the way the world works. It's a nasty world.
And then you just do a trade deal?
We do. Well, we made a lot of money with this trade deal. I do a trade deal if it works. We made a lot of money with the trade deal.
I want to move on to the big, beautiful bill. And you have asked to have this on your desk by July 4th. You think you're going to get it in that timing?
I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you that. I hate to say yes. I'd like to say yes, but the problem is if we're 2 days late or 5 days late, everybody says, oh, you had a tremendous failure. Whatever it is, as long as we have it. It's very important. If we don't have it, there's a 68% tax increase. If we don't have it, the debt ceiling extension is very important. They gave a debt ceiling, the Republicans gave a debt ceiling because of the importance of doing it. They did that for the good of the country, and Republicans voted for that. They did a big favor. I don't know that I would have done it, to be honest with you, but whatever. They did a favor. Now the Democrats won't do that favor back. In other words, you never want to violate your debt covenants. So they gave, what I'm saying, they gave this 4 months early. It was due on September 28th, right before the election. A group of Republicans got together and said, you know what, this is so serious. We should do this for the good of the country. I understand that. Now,
and this is the way it always happens. Whenever you run into the deficit cap and the national debt cap, the Republicans always agree to up the cap. And the reason for that is because they don't want to be pointed at as the reason why the system falls apart. But when the Democrats are in the opposition, then they absolutely never will want to side with the Republicans to up the budget cap. And the reason for that is because they know that they have this grip onto the mainstream media, and they know that they have a grip on the narrative. And if it came to a disastrous situation in regards to the national debt, the Democrats know that they have the ability to spin the narrative in their favor and to point to the Republicans as being responsible. And that's why the Republicans, despite a lot of them being fiscal conservatives, as a party, the Republicans will always vote to up the debt limit.
Now it's their turn to do it, and they won't do it. There are a lot of bad people in the Democrat Party.
How are you going to deal with the $9 trillion that's coming due this year?
Just turn it over. Oh, well, let me tell you that we're going to do it this way. We're going to turn it over short term because we have a stupid person at the Fed. If he would lower the rates, but I don't want to have to pay for 10 years debt at a higher rate. And then when you get somebody into the Fed who's going to be able to lower the rates, we should be at 1% or 2%. If you look at Switzerland, they're the lowest right now. They're at much less than 1 point.
And we definitely shouldn't be at 1% and definitely shouldn't be at 2%. We should be somewhere perhaps between 2.5% and 3%. But in a sense, he's right. And of course, he's going to do the same thing that the Biden administration did. He's going to load up on T-bills, waiting for essentially the economy to fall apart and rates to go down to near zero, at which point they're going to, emit as much bonds as they can. And, this is what's going to be happening now in the coming months. And we'll cover that, of course, in the future videos when we're going to talk about the markets. But essentially, he's telling you here that there is a bad situation, perhaps a recession that will be coming. If he wants to load up on short-term bills, that means that he thinks in the future lower rates are coming, and lower rates would only be coming if the economy is going down.
Frankly, we should be there too, because without the United States, the whole world doesn't work.
And you teased a couple of names. You said you have a couple of people in mind
I have
as a
three.
successor to Jay Powell.
They'll all be good, yeah.
But you're not going to do that right now. So why do that? Just to put more pressure on him to come in?
People that know, because reporters ask me, do you have other names? And I say, yeah, I do. Anybody but Powell.
And would it be Kevin Orr?
He's a bad person. Yeah. Kevin is very talented, but I don't know if it's going to be him, but he's a very talented guy. He wouldn't be doing what Powell is.
Mr. President, I think I know your priorities in the big, beautiful bill. I mean, obviously, you want to get the tax cuts extended, and you've got other tax cuts.
Many other things, though, takes care of the border.
The border.
There's also no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime.
But I've spoken to a few senators, and they've gotten together, like Rick Scott and Ron Johnson and Mike Lee. And, Rick Scott's worried about the overall cost, and Mike Lee is worried about the Inflation Reduction Act. And,
the Inflation Reduction Act is what caused a lot of problems.
So why don't you just take that out of
the bill? It was the Biden administration.
Why are there still green subsidies in that?
I'm all for that. I think we shouldn't be giving money to all of these scams. But what happened is some of them have been started, like projects, and if you stop it, it's in the middle. So I understand that too, and people work there, and they're working there, and they're from the district of a congressman or a senator. But no, the Inflation Reduction Act was another Biden scam. And when I say Biden, it's not Biden. It was the lunatics that work around the, in the Oval Office, around the beautiful Resolute desk. It's not Biden, because I don't think Biden knew what was happening. I think.
And, this is perhaps the reason for the feud between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, or at least part of it, because, Elon Musk and Tesla, they were the recipient of, that Inflation Reduction Act, which was had nothing to do with reducing inflation. It was a massive spending bill, multi-trillion dollar spending bill with subsidies for, among other things, electric vehicles. And that money in the big, beautiful bill of Donald Trump, if it goes away, then, of course, it's going to hurt Tesla's bottom line.
I think that the auto pen is one of the biggest scandals in the history of this country, because the person that operated the auto pen was the president of the United States. And I think that that's going to be sought out, and we're going to find out what happened.
Well, I believe it's this week, that's 1 year ago, which was the debate where his mental capacity was exposed to so many people who didn't know it. Many of us saw it, obviously, in advance. And now James Comer at the Oversight Committee wants lots of people to come in. Who would you like to see come in and testify on that? Under oath.
I would say Lisa, who was in there.
Is that the deputy AG at the time?
Yeah,
Lisa Monaco.
Who's a big supporter of Andrew Weissman. These are people that I think are very bad people. They had radical left lunatics working there, and they took over that office. They didn't want Biden, and then after a little while, they realized he's incompetent. This is really a good thing, and they ran that thing. Look, Biden was never for open borders. Biden was never for transgender for everybody. He was never for men playing in women's sports. He was never for that. Biden is a disaster. This is a disaster. But the worst thing that he's done to us, inflation is terrible, but I've solved that problem already. Inflation is bad, and other things are bad, and many things are, and the fact that we have no respect all around the world for the country, but now we do I think maybe at the high, we took it from the lowest to the highest level in 6 months. But if you look at what he did to the border, is so bad. So much of my time is spent on the border. Last month we had.
And here, Trump goes on a tangent, and he misses the point that he was actually trying to make, is that Joe Biden was never for anything that he did during his administration, his own administration. If you look at his record, at his political record throughout his career, he basically stood against everything that he did or supposedly did while he was president. And of course, it lends to the idea that he was not in charge. He was just an actor, a figurehead for an administration that really acted without his consent and without his knowledge. And the AutoPen story, it lends credence to that there were people behind the scenes who were using his signature literally without him knowing what he was signing, and they were signing documents and they were running his administration without him knowing. And that is quite an incredible situation. I don't think I've ever heard of a White House running in this way.
So July 9th is coming up. What are you going to do about the end of the pause in the tariffs?
It's so simple. We're sending letters out. I'd rather do it now. My guys, hey, I have great guys, Scott, Howard, other people, Jameson. They're talking to all these countries. We made a deal pretty much with India. We made a deal with China. We made a deal with UK, great people. We made deals. But I'd rather just send them a letter, a very fair letter, saying, congratulations, we're going to allow you to trade in the United States of America. You're going to pay a 25% tariff or 20% or 40 or 50%. I would rather do that. So when I get,
we're not trying to extend the pause.
I don't think I'll need to because I could. There's no big deal. It's like TikTok. I'm extending that, but no big deal. We have a buyer for TikTok, by the way. I think I'll need probably China approval. And I think President Xi will probably do it.
Who's buying?
I'll tell you in about 2 weeks.
A big technology company there.
Very, very wealthy people. It's a group of very wealthy people. But
this is going to be pretty interesting to see what happens in regards to TikTok. And if China agrees to a deal for TikTok, and we'll have to see if this ends up being a lever for China in the negotiation with the trade deal with the Trump administration. And we'll see who will end up buying this. And there's been, of course, a lot of talk. Initially, it was Microsoft who was lined up for TikTok. But we'll have to see. Perhaps it will be some other group.
What I want to do is, and what I will do just sometime prior to the 9th, is we'll send a letter to all these countries. There's 200 countries. You can't talk to all of them. No matter how many people you have, you can't talk to all of them. We'll send a letter and we'll say we would consider it a great honor, and this is what you'll have to do to shop in the United States. We're like a department store, to shop in the United States, and you'll pay a 25% tariff, and we wish you a lot of luck. And that's the end of the trade deal. Because we have something that nobody has. But if I didn't get elected, I'm telling you, we wouldn't have had a country left. You know that better than anybody. Nobody covers it better than you. If I didn't turn this thing around, this big ship around, we turned it around just like those ships coming out of China. They were coming and loaded, and in the middle of the ocean, they were forced to go back because at 145% tariff, Walmart, nobody wanted their product. And that caused a big problem for China. And then I helped China.
So
by reducing it.
We still don't know. We don't have the clarity on what you're going to do with these expiration of these pauses. July 9th?
No, I think I thought I just said it.
with
No,
China.
I thought I just said it. You ready?
You're going to send the letters.
I'm going to send letters. That's the end of the trade deal. I could send one to Japan. Dear Mr. Japan, here's the story. You're going to pay a 25% tariff on your cars. So we give Japan no cars. They won't take our cars, right? And yet we take millions and millions of their cars into the United States. It's not fair. And I explained that to Japan, and they understand it. And we have a big deficit with Japan, and they understand that too. Now, we have oil. They could take a lot of oil. They could take a lot of other things. But basically, and I'm for doing it right now, we send letters out to all of the countries explaining to them, we'll look at the deficit we have or whatever it is with the country. We'll look at how a country treats us. Are they good? Are they not so good? Some countries, we don't care. We'll just send a high number out. But we're going to be sending letters out starting pretty soon. No, we don't have to meet. We understand. We have all the numbers. Listen, what we're going to do is we're going to send, and we're going to say, congratulations, we're allowing you to shop in the United States of America. you're going to pay a 25% tariff or a 35% or a 50% or 10%.
I'll tell you what the U.S. automakers are worried about. They don't want Japan and Korea to have a lower tariff if you do a deal with them than the U.S. automakers are paying.
Well, the U.S. automakers are going to be so busy selling cars in the U.S., they're not going to even have to worry about it. But that won't happen.
So here, you know, a little bit of a non-answer, but somewhat of an answer. Essentially, what he's saying is that there is no extension of the pause. And, you know, if you've been watching our previous videos on the channel, you remember, you know, after Liberation Day, the market was tanking. And we were saying, of course, you know, people are awfully pessimistic and we're going to have a rebound. Now we've had that rebound. We're back to all-time high. And essentially, you know, we were saying, look out for this all-time high. When we get that rebound, when we get a marginally higher high, then perhaps this is the point where you're going to get the final high, and then we'll be going back down. And perhaps here, Donald Trump is telling us, you know, July 9, look out, because if he doesn't move, if he doesn't extend this deadline for the pause on the tariffs, then we're going to see the same panic that we saw on Liberation Day 2.0, perhaps on the 9th. Then we're going to see the markets absolutely tank if there is no extension. So that is it for this Donald Trump interview with Maria Bartiromo from Fox Business. And, you know, of course, they covered things like the legislative agenda of Donald Trump with this bill that just got through the Senate, or is planned to go through the Senate very shortly. We'll see if Donald Trump manages to sign this bill before July 4th. And of course, they went over the intervention in Iran. But I think the main takeaway from this interview has been what has not been said about the July 9th deadline for the extension of the tariff pause. And if it is the case, if it happens so the way Donald Trump seems to be hinting, then prepare for some fireworks in the market on July 9th for Liberation Day 2.0. Perhaps we're about to see some panic in the market, and it would go along what we've been saying ever since the original Liberation Day, that we would have a rebound on some overly pessimistic sentiment from the market. And when we do so, when we go back to all-time high, it will be the time to look perhaps at another drop. And, you know, if things that we've been saying lately, especially with the Federal Reserve, that seems to be late behind the curve when it comes to lowering interest rates. And we've said on this channel already for more than a year that we expect the Fed to be late because we expect the Fed to want to have a recession to terminally extinguish the inflation problem in the US economy. And if that happens to be the case, we will have these tariffs that will now come into effect, plus that added with the Fed that has yet to cut rates. And this is going to be the recipe for a disaster and perhaps a recession for the US economy, a recession that would have been anticipated for a long time, that would have been months and months in the making. To be frank, it's been quite surprising to see the US economy being that resilient and the recession not coming yet. But perhaps we're about to see all this play out this summer. So that's it for our video today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. And I will see you all very soon on the next one.
Hit me with that like and sub to the channel. Hit me with that like. And click the effing bell. Click that bit, alright. The algo recommends for she go like. The algo knows you well. Hit me with that like. Subscribe to the channel. Hit me with that like. And click the effing bell.